Hello, Billy the Artist here, and back with another how to draw video in the Harry Potter series, and today we are doing Dobby. How to draw Dobby. So we're going to do the little house elf, which will be good fun, and he causes all kinds of interesting things in the Harry Potter films and in the books, so we are doing him today. But we have done Harry, Ron and Hermione. We've also done from Fantastic Beasts, we have Newt Scamander, Albus Dumbledore and Gellert Grindelwald. So you can check those out because there is now a full Harry Potter playlist. We have the full complete playlist now with just the Harry Potter stuff in, so do check that out. The link's in the cards and descriptions. Please do like and subscribe because I'm going to be doing lots more because you've all asked for lots of characters, so I'm going to be doing more and more and more of the Harry Potter people. But here we have the paper. Now I've been remiss in some of the others where I have said, all right, we'll just get on and we'll use the trusty 2B pencil, but this is an A4 piece of paper. It's 210mm across the top and 297 down the side, and this grid that we've actually put up is splitting it in half and then into quarters in each section. So across the top the markings are, so you got 52.5mm, 105mm or mil, and 15.75 down this side. So this line is at 74.25, 148.5 is the centre line, and 222.75. Now an easy way, because you got like strange numbers, so you can see that's, I'm putting the ruler on and coming off is 30 centimeters. So what I do to get the center is where 15 is, I just kind of put the ruler over the edge of the paper because it's a bit hard to split it in you know, that 148.5 kind of number. So I just kind of put the ruler so as you can see that it's equally spaced over, and then you just use 15 and that's how you can get your centre line. That's a quick simple tip. But anyway, 2B pencil, we're using 4B as well at the ready, and we are going to draw Dobby. So here we go. So what we're going to do is, I'm using these grids help a lot, but I'm also going to be using the shapes. How to draw anything part 1 shows you how to use very simple shapes. So here I'm doing a rectangle for Dobby's ear, and then inside I am doing, you've got this kind of curved triangle that goes up, and then where his ear is here you've got another triangle on the inside. Now his forehead is across the top, and his eyes, I'm just doing a long rectangle, and then we want a rectangle coming down to about halfway there, that's the side of his head, and then we want another rectangle for his left ear, and that's coming down to about halfway inside that shape. So I'm going to go over these lines and just make them a little bit darker, so as you can see. And even the construction lines, the grid lines, I've put these on quite dark, but you can put these on a lot lighter. So here on this ear here we've got a rectangle, but now here for Dobby's nose, inside this one we've got a triangle there, and then if we do a little rectangle for Dobby's eye there, and then the same for all of his eye socket over here, so it comes over to about halfway. But then Dobby's actual eye is a smaller rectangle inside of it. We've got all, and this left eye is higher, we've got all of these wrinkles around his eye that we're going to build upon as well. So there's that. Now his nose here with his nostrils, we've got coming to a point, so you've got another triangle there that kind of comes down, and his jawline and his mouth. So we've got this little rectangle at the bottom. I'm trying to do this quite quickly. I know the portrait's been quite long, and then coming up to his chin you've got a diagonal line from his chin up to his right cheek. And then you've got this knot here in his little tunic before he gets given a sock. And then if we draw a kind of cone shape there, and then a rectangle for the knot coming off over his shoulder, and then these folds that come down, you can see where that line comes to the bottom. You've got this kind of big V, but you've got the shape coming off his shoulder on this side. And so that comes down there. And then where the knot is, so you can see his shoulders are going and curving up and over. But you can see that goes over the top of that centre line and joins on the top of the knot. And then it's a bit windy today, so you can hear things around. I've got the window open because it's quite warm, but it's blowing bits and bobs around, and we've got birds tweeting, so you might be able to hear those things, I'm not sure. And people gardening and all kinds of stuff. And his arm, you got, so if we just draw a rectangle down for his arm at the moment, but then you can do a bit of an S, and that's the curve of his arm coming down, and then his tunic coming right down at the bottom. And then on this side we've got this V shape, but you've got this nice curve coming round. So there we have, quite lightly, a very cubist kind of Dobby drawn in. Now, so as I don't smudge, I'm going to use this piece of paper, put it underneath my hand, and we're going to start adding in these little squares detail lines in quite quickly. So we need to put a big curve in for Dobby's eye. So we've got the bottom of his eye coming round, and that's just over where his tear duct would be, is just inside the kind of halfway point of this rectangle, and it goes, his eye goes up and over to this point outside there. Now right on the line we've got, if we draw that circle for his pupil, his nice big wide pupil, and then on the outside there we can probably push his eyeball out a little bit. I'm going to use, just to get rid of some of that darker line, because obviously you've got the highlight coming in from this side, and here there'll be highlights as well. There's a highlight right there, so I'm just going to draw a little circle to leave that highlight in. And then if we draw the outer part of his iris coming down, and we can just make that a little bit larger. So now we've got the curve of the top of his eyelid coming right the way over. It kind of goes into the square point right the way down, And Dobby's got lots of wrinkles, so you can really enjoy making some nice dark lines. And then you've got the curve right into the corner, and we can darken that down underneath, and then you've got the bag underneath his eye. And that's his left eye done. Now again, if we go on this side, so you can see how the top of this eye is in line with the top of his pupil. It's kind of slightly diagonal, and then he's got this kind of quizzical little flick up with the crease into his eye. We can put the creases up there as well, and that's the top of his eyebrow. He's got no eyebrows like us, but you can see that's the top of his eye line, and that comes down to here, but we've got this little rectangle inside, so that's where the top of his eye is, and we can see that it curves in where his tear duct is, and then that needs to come down. And you can see how the bottom of this has got to be further lower than the bottom of his left eye, because his head's just slightly tilted. Now we bring the underneath of that eye down. Now the top of his eye, of his eyelid, isn't a straight curve. There's no such thing as a straight curve. It isn't just a curve in one sweeping motion like this side. It's kind of got three angles. So you can draw a line up, a line across, and a line down. And you've got a slightly straighter line coming across the top, and then it curves down into the corner. And then the same as that goes down. And then his eyebrow at the top, the fold comes down and across and follows down to that corner. And again, we can follow the line underneath, and then you've got the real bag right underneath down the bottom, and then you've got right into the corner some more creases. Now here the outside of his iris is just inside that line, and we can increase the definition on that a little bit. And you've got highlight just inside that line there. So if we now draw similar Dobby's pupil for his right eye, similar size to the left eye, and now the outer part of his iris. There you've got Dobby's eyes just starting to look out at you. So now what we want is, on these two triangles that we did for his nose, we can do his right nostril, and we can follow these construction lines that we put in quite well. So we've got this curve here, and you can see how his left nostril goes, and it kind of comes up inside this iris. So if you come down, that's where the outer part of his left nostril needs to be, and you can draw that curve a bit like a top of a P, a capital P, if you think of it like that. Now you can see the P coming all the way down. So there's the P, there's a P shape, and that's the edge of his nose coming down, and then we draw the curve of his nose coming round. I would say that's possibly about thirds. So if you think of that as 1, 2, 3, no, it's a bit less than a third. So there's your third line. So you can just guess where his nose needs to go. And you can put that slight fold in there, and then we've got his cheek line coming off from the corner of his nose, going there, and it's a bit like a diamond shape there, and that'll be shade as we actually put that in. There we've got Dobby's nose appearing quite quickly. Now again, we've got this line in for his mouth. His mouth's quite an interesting shape because it's just kind of open. You've got his top lip and his bottom lip, and he's showing a little bit of teeth. So we've got to have his chin that's just above the kind of halfway line. So if you follow those construction lines, again, I'm doing the outline quite dark, and you can see where his cheek is, and it comes to about halfway, and then we'll join that line kind of wibbly wobbly, just coming down, joining onto his chin, and the same on this side. I do these lines very, very dark so that you can see them, but you don't have to do them as dark as I do, and that'll allow you to enhance your detail. But I do these as dark as I do so that you can see them. So now we've got wibbly wobbly line coming down, and then that joins on his chin on the far side. So here we've got Dobby's top lip kind of curves very slightly right the way over to the right hand side. So it curves round and then just blips up over the top. So you've got like a curve going under and then a curve going over, and then we want the curve going under there, and that makes the little bit of lip that's showing. Now again, if we do a U-shaped curve coming round, that's the little gap showing his teeth, and he's got 4 little teeth showing. So, and there in the centre you got 1, 2, little U there, and they're the 4 teeth that are actually showing. Now his bottom lip is coming right down, and you've got that big U, and it comes up and joins on that corner. Ooh, just dropping my pencil. And you got shadow right in the centre of the nose on his bottom lip, so I'll just indicate that, and then we can build the shadow up on it in a bit. And then you've got like the little crease line underneath, making his very, very tiny little chin there, so we can increase that when we actually put some of the shading in a moment. But then we've got his neck that comes down, so we want the top of this tunic, and that comes and joins over, and then so his neck comes down, and again it's a bit like a U, and you've got these little creases inside, and then the highlight shows that part of his neck on there, and then his tunic comes up and joins on where the bit comes off of the tie on the knot up here. So there we can see Dobby just really starting to appear. Now he can kind of just do it like that, can't he? He can click his fingers and transport himself. So now we're going to do his right here off the top of his head. So as we have the curve of his head coming over, we'll do the very top of his head. You got a little bump in the middle, and then it curves over, then you got a little bump there, and then it curves down to his ear, the top of his ear, and you've got like little steps that come down. Now again, on this side you've got the crease that creates like a little step, but the crease comes right the way down, and then you can do the second one, and then his ear comes off. You've got the third little step, and then his ear curves inside that rectangle. And so you're inside that box there, that rectangle. So if we do the edge of his cheek, and you got a little point there, and then so you got the side of his cheek comes down and joins that, and then we can push that little part of skin out there, and then from level with the bottom of his left eye, just under, we can bring the point of his ear down, and then that goes out further than there, so you can see you've got a bit of a curve going out and then coming back round it. So if we draw the line down from the top of the ear, you go out and then bring it back down round to the point. Now here we've got the top of his earlobe that curves, and that highlight follows that line down, and it comes down to join the side of his head next to his eye. So there we can push that line out a little bit, and then the curve goes up and joins over the top, and then you've got another little bit that comes underneath. So there's Dobby's left ear done. So now we're going to do Dobby's right ear, and that's going to curve all the way out. We can come out a lot further. The point, the edge of his ear goes out further than the point and curves back in. And that's just inside that halfway, so it's like the start of a big C, but you're going to cut it off at this point down here. So we follow the construction line out, we go past that box that we did, because that joins onto the point, so you can go out a little bit further and come back down and you join on. And then here we've got this this like TP shape, this inverted V, point going up with this little triangle, and we can do a curve inside of it, and that will create us the curve of the inside of Dobby's ear. And we need to follow it, and then we bend the curve round, and it comes, and it needs to be level with just above the top of his right nostril. So you've got this really nice kind of curve, S-bend shape, but we've got a little double dink underneath his earlobe at the bottom. So if we follow it back, there's the dink, there's the second one, and we're going up, and now we're curving over. Now for the top of his ear, we just bend that down, follow that construction line, and his ear comes over to the side of his head, and you can see it comes, and the line would end up in the corner of his eye. So now we can do that crease line and the second one. Now here, kind of halfway, not halfway, you can see there's just this crease in his ear, just looks like a T. So there's the top, and there's the bar coming down on the T, and then we want this other crease line inside his ear. We can follow the inside of the curve for his right ear, and then we've got another crease line that comes down there. There's Dobby's right here. So there we have an outline coming together quite quickly. So now the knot inside this little square that we've got here, we can follow the curve outside and follow the shape of the fabric. Then we've got this cone coming off the bottom, and you follow inside that triangle, and that's how you draw that shape of that cloth. And then we've got the cloth coming off the top. We can, oh, we've got to do the side of his, oh, missed his cheek. So here we have his cheek coming up, and he's got this crease underneath that T, and that goes, those two lines go off, go up towards his eye, and then you've got this crease going onto his cheek. And then here we've got another line coming down off that eye. Nearly missed those. So now we can draw the top, go over that line, draw the top off his tunic, and then the same for this scraggly bit coming off the knot. Now his right shoulder, left shoulder, just curves down from the corner of his mouth slightly. Then we've got this fabric. We're going to follow the curve down, and it just kicks back in, and this is the shape of his arm, and we're going to do the line all the way down for the fabric. Then you've got the fold there, and then the fabric coming off the top of his left shoulder. Kind of, you can just do a wiggly line if you want because of the frayed edge, and that goes up and joins there. And then we've got a fold line coming down, and it goes and curves back up. Now again, coming from underneath the fabric coming off the knot, we've got a fold line coming down, and we've got coming underneath this big fold that curves around as well, and all this will be in shadow underneath. And we've got another fold line that comes down from underneath the knot above his right arm. So now with his right arm, we can follow that curve, and then from underneath his armpit you've got a slight curve again. Don't follow the straight line, you just do a couple of little wiggles, and there's Dobby's arm. And then you want the final bit of the fabric coming down, and there's an outline of Dobby, and we can start shading it in after this. I'm going to rub out the pencil lines as well, so I'm just going to get my eraser. I'm going to rub out the construction lines inside Dobby's head, and it just cleans it up that little bit. Again, you don't have to do these lines as dark as I have, and then that can leave your drawing much cleaner and just take more time. Now, I had somebody look at my Peter Hickman time-lapse drawing of a motorcycle racer, and they said, oh, can I do that in real time? Now I do these as quick as I possibly can, but something like that motorcycle is about 40 to 50 hours drawing, so I can't really do that in real time. I show you these techniques, and then you can spend as much time to actually make it as detailed as you want. But anyway, there's Dobby looking quite good. Now, even though I've rubbed out the construction lines, the one thing that I kind of missed off at first was, well, not first, just at that end bit, is his wrinkles in his head. Now again, if we draw over, and imagine where the centre line is. So we've got that wrinkle coming all the way down, crease in the top of his head, and this will help. I'm going to put a triangle in there because this is going to help with the shading. And he's got another crease going up there, and then another one that goes kind of across the centre line, and another one off the top, but above his nose, so these crease lines would go up, and he's got that kind of cross in the centre of his forehead. And so, and then he's going to have these hairs, little wispy hairs on the top of his head, but we could put them in when we've done a lot of the shading. So now I'm just going to use a 4B pencil, and this is the pencil holder. It's a very stubby end of the pencil and that way you can still use some of your older pencils. Now I'm going to, because this is 4B, you can get much darker. Now you can get 8B and 9B, and B means soft. The darker you go, the softer you go. So like 8B, you could get a much darker, but I'm just using 2 pencils. You could just use 2B, but I'm just using 2 pencils to encourage you to experiment with different tones and different grades of pencil. When I do my full detail drawings, I use from 6H, I use 6H, 2H, 2B, 4B and 8B. Sometimes 9B because I've got them in these pencils. But I've used that 4B there just to really put the darks in. Now I'm going back to the 2B. And so I'm going to darken up his eye coming round. Just while I've put that on. And his iris is quite light, but it's got a kind of line going round that's a little bit darker inside. Now again, the highlight is right in his eye, and then using the very side of the pencil very lightly, filling in his eyeball. Now again, the same on this side. I'm just going to rub out where the highlight is completely. And we can darken that line down. And the reason I'm doing his eyes a little bit more detailed now is just so it gives you something to focus on. There's that highlight, and then the 2 highlights there on the side. Now, very lightly, and I'm just using cross hatching, just little lines. I haven't smudged or smoothed anything. And then in his iris you got that slightly darker line pattern going all the way round, following his pupil. Just going to curve that pupil a little bit more. Now, there you can see his eyes just starting to come together as you add a little bit of tone. Now there's a bit of a highlight up on that top because you've got light coming down on the top of his forehead as well. So I'm now going to use the smudging tool. Now you can use kitchen towel or your finger. But I'm just going to use this smudging tool. It's just compressed paper, and you can push the pencil around as if you were using a proper pencil. And I think these are brilliant. They give you such good flexibility, and you can push the tone around and just build it up. But again, go slowly. It's easier to add than it is to take away. So like where you've put the dark in right in the centre of his eyes, you couldn't lighten that now. So now really push that down. But this is the beauty with eyes, because they reflect light, really push that tone down. I'm going to pull off some pencil from the side of the iris using this putty rubber, and the same on that side, and then on his eyeball I'm just dotting and dabbing lightly, and then the same on his right eye, dabbing right the way up, and then right around his pupil again, across the top, and then on his eyeball on the side. So I'm just going to really darken, crisp up the edge of his pupil on his left eye. And now really darken the edge of his iris. I'm using the very point and just gently darkening that line down, pressing on, and then the same in his iris, just little lines, intensifying that shape that goes round. So if we do the same on this side, darken the line on the edge of his iris, and darken the iris itself, the little ring that's inside. I'm just putting little lines on to increase the intensity. And then when we put the rest of the shading in, that should then really pull his eyes together, and we can build on that as well in a second. So now I'm going to fill in the shading quite quickly. Again, I'm using the 2B pencil. So there's the shading that's quite dark inside his eye. Again, the similar kind of tone is down inside this ear. You can just have fun with this, because Dobby's quite a wrinkly creature, so you can really enjoy creating the textures. Now his forehead, that goes up, you got that line going across there, and we've got a complete tone coming across, but it's lighter than this, and the same coming across his forehead, and the highlights will give it the shape and that form. as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just rub that out a little bit. I'm going to curve that a little bit more, bring that down, and then increase that bump. He just curves his head a little bit more. Now, again, using the side of this 2B pencil, I'm going to increase the tone around his right eye. And then we want this little diamond here. Underneath his nose. I'm doing the darker parts first, inside his right ear. Coming down by his right cheek, right down the side, and then we need to put, coming across here, his laughter line from his mouth, and his mouth kind of comes up and joins there. You see there's a lighter tone that connects down to the left hand side of his mouth, and you've got a bit of a darker shadow on the side of Dobby's nose there. So you can see as we're adding tone, he's really starting to pull Dobby's eyes out as it all comes together. And again, the same darker tone coming down for his neck, underneath, up to his right shoulder. Now we've got a very dark little crease there, but we can fill that tone in quite quickly. Again, his arm, so that's the top of that tunic. If you do his arm coming down, it's very dark coming down, but we won't go right to the edge of the paper. You've got a highlight just down the arm, but don't worry if you kind of go over. So I'm filling in lots of his arm very quickly. You've got a bit of muscle and tendon type shape, his bicep coming down. And again, you can just indicate this with tone very, very quickly. Again, I'm using the side of the pencil. And just for practice, rather than doing it on a drawing like this, just get a piece of paper and practice drawing using the side of a pencil, making marks, and that'll help you to build up your tonal awareness. Now his nose, there's a highlight right at the end of his nose here, but if you follow the line up, and you know that all down this side is in shadow, but not as dark as down there, and you can fill in all of his cheek, the side of his nose. Now we can really fill in his lip. Be careful in his teeth. Above the top of his right hand side of his lip, over to his chin. Now here we've got this triangle, and then you've got light, and then you've got this shape coming up here. Now again, we can be very careful, put little points, and this will be the shape of that shadow. So I'm lightly filling that in. It's a bit darker coming down to his ear, and we can darken his ear down even more. And don't forget those creases that are inside. But now we can fill that little shape in and the side of Dobby's head. Going up, and you've got that strong highlight coming down. So we don't want to put too much pencil on because we want to keep those highlights showing strong. So we can just indicate where those creases are, and then we can come up onto the top of his forehead. Now I'm just turning my pencil slightly so I haven't got the flat side that I've just used. I've got a sharper point, and so now I can just hold the pencil very lightly and then get a lighter tone for above his left eye, and then the same coming right over the top. And the strongest point of light is here, and so you can fill in very gently over the top of his head, and then even a little bit on the right hand side, just to this side of the centre line, the right hand side of his head, the left side of the centre line as you're looking at it. And now we can just increase the tone of the creases over his forehead, bringing that down, and now the side of his head, and we can do underneath his left eye, over his cheek, coming down to his nose. That's lighter. Left hand side of his mouth, and then that part of his ear and the top of his shoulder. Now if we come over to his right ear and we fill all of that in, we can press on again a little bit darker, and there you can see Dobby's really starting to take a lot of shape because of the increased tone. So we've got to do the same on his tunic now. Remember, if you squint you can kind of see the tonal shape, so we've got a big triangle down here that's going to be kind of in shade, but you can leave a little bit over the top of that to be highlighted where that goes up over to the tunic. There's a bright highlight on the top of the knot. We'll fill all of that area in now, and again the same coming down, and we can add darker tone to create the kind of fold lines, fill in the rest of the side of his tunic there. Now I'm not doing the grey and darker background, the greener background that you see. I'm not doing that, I'm just going to leave that bare. So here we've got the highlight on the edge, and I'm filling that in, and that goes up, and then you've got a highlight there, so I'm just indicating and gently filling that in, and you've got that highlight coming down across the front of his tunic. Now that curve is quite dark inside that fold line, and then light over his shoulder, and then you've got a dark tone coming down underneath that curve, and we can build those tones up, going up to where the knot is, and the knot's got a lot of dark, but you have got this strong highlight on the top. So I'm being very careful. You've got the dark inside the knot that comes off the tied part of the knot, and then you've got a bit of highlight there, darker underneath, going to slightly light, and you've got darker edge on there, and then underneath, and that casts a shadow on his shoulder. You can fill all of that in, So there we are, very quickly, Dobby filled in. I'm now going to just use a folded up piece of kitchen roll, and I'm just going to smudge, press on the darker areas quite quickly around his ear. But again, I'm trying to leave, there's my paper gone, just push some tone around that light part that I had on the left side of his chin. I'm leaving some of the lines showing, but this is a great way. You can just leave the lines completely. You can see how you're pushing the tone around, and it just looks really, really lovely. Now you can use your finger, but you get very dirty, and you might leave smudges here, there and everywhere through your house. Again, I'm not too concerned about coming out over past his ear. That's the beauty with a drawing. You can be as tight and detailed as you want, and check out the portraits that I've done in the portraits playlist. Or you can be as loose like this and just have fun. That's the beauty with art, is you can create. Now I'm just dabbing and pushing that, pressing on harder in that side, that fold. Again, and that, as I was saying, that's the beauty with art and drawing, is you can create. There you go, I've just pushed on very darkly there so you can see that tone in an impressionistic way with your marks, or you can be very, very tight and detailed. It's up to you. Just have fun. So there we have Dobby kind of smoothed out. I'm just going to sharpen my pencil as well. But now we've kind of lost a lot of the darks. I've just sharpened the 2B pencil. Before I go back with that, we're going to go in now with the putty rubber, and we're going to pull up highlights. Again, because he's so wrinkly, you can just dab this. So you can see I've just done the side of his nose, and then coming across his cheek, down the side of his nose. Then you've got that one on the side. You can see there straight away Dobby's nose looks more three-dimensional. So now I'm pulling that back in on the side of his cheek, those creases going up to where his eye is, right on the edge of his eye, going up to the folds on the top. Now I'm being loose and impressionistic, then you can, because I just want to do this quick so that you can have a lot of fun. Now, I've just pulled a lot off there, so I'm just pushing some back in with the kitchen towel. Now these creases over the top are like little birds, and you'll see, you know, like a little bird shape that you would do. Now you can see Dobby's really looking good. Now I've been careful on his ear, and there's two lines there, but then you've got a very strong highlight right on the edge. So I put my little finger on to balance, and that allows me to have a lot more control over where I put the eraser, and then right inside his ear. Now I'm dabbing, and that just pulls off some as well. You can see I've just pulled up the highlight inside his ear. Now underneath his eye, and pulling this to a fine point means you can really highlight lots of little creases that Dobby's got. So we've got underneath his eye, eyelid, and over the top of his eyelid, coming down inside Now again, when we darken that down in a moment, that will really start to stand out. Because smudging everything out, we created quite a mid-tone. So again, following these creases up to the centre of his forehead. And then those crease lines off the top. Now this very strong highlight down the side. And over the top of his head on this right hand side. But here they flow up, so imagine like a big eyebrow going that way, and the same with this eye. Go in the direction, it's like doing hair, go in the same direction and it just looks more convincing. So I'm following the curve of his eyebrow up to his forehead, and that creates that highlight, and you can see that's really pulled that up. So now the same as we did with his left eye, his right eye, over the top of his eyelid, I'm pulling up that highlight even more. Same on there, and then right in the corner. Now right in his eye, so I'm just dabbing, because these aren't strong highlights, just pressing on very lightly. Bags under his eyes, coming down over his cheek, right cheek, dabbing the centre of his nose and up the side. So I've got quite a flat bit, it's not as I'm using the flat edge like I was using the flat of the pencil to fill it in of the rubber, and that way you can get more of a shape rather than a sort of tight pinched line. Oh, this is looking great. I'm really enjoying this, hope you are. And so there's highlights on his top lip, coming down underneath his bottom lip. Now the side of his chin, now his shoulder, you've got a little V, and then just some dabs inside, and then on the side of his neck underneath his chin. Again, I'm just indicating now here, which is his right shoulder, is a very bright highlight. Now again, you can be impressionistic, you can see I've just pulled off a lot, and it just helps to pull up all of the light, the pencil off, so it creates light, and when you put more dark back in, it will accentuate that even more. So now the top of his ear, again, right on the edge, I'm being very careful. Now inside his ear, I'm now just dabbing. Following the shape of his ear over the top. Again, these creases. And down the side of his head, down here, you've got those strong highlights. I'm just dabbing to pull off a lot of pencil. And then when we add the dark back on in a second, that'll really, and some definition lines, that'll really pull that up. So now we're going to build the definition up. So I'm still using the 2B pencil, and we're going to quickly build up some definition lines. Again, Dobby's quite wrinkly, which is great, so you can just have fun making marks. So you see there, I've just gone underneath the bag underneath his eye into that corner. Now I'm going to strengthen up the fold into the corner of his eye, socket, and then that comes right the way down to his tear duct, right in the corner of his eye, and then underneath his iris. So again, I'm just darkening that line down again a little bit, and so now I'm just cross-hatching, just building up the darkness. The lines that you've got already in place are your guide, so you've got that kind of edge of the darkness. So pushing that down, and then you've got a bit of dark that's coming up. And you can see Dobby's eye, in comparison to the rest, starting to darken down. And we need to bring the rest of the drawing up, but you just work around building the tone up. A little bit lighter coming around the curve. You've got his creases coming off. The edge of his top eyelid. Now his bottom eyelid, we can darken the edge of that, and you've got creases going out to his ear. So now we need to really darken down inside that ear. And the top part of his ear as that curves over and around. Again, I'm using the side of the pencil because it's great for this kind of shading work. And I'm crisping up. I turn the pencil around to get a sharp part that allows me to crisp up to where that highlight is. And you just need to be a little bit careful if you don't want to go over those lines. So now I'm filling in the tone within his ear, and it's darkest right in underneath the fold there, and then right down, going down to that point. So we've got light creases coming down here, but we need to push that tone out for his cheek, and then the top of his left nostril. Again, I just keep looking at the reference and building up the tone. Dark underneath the left side of his nose, and then the top of his lip. Nice creases going down, and then so you can see Dobby's face taking more shape and more form. Now that can fill that in across the bottom of his cheek. More darker tone right underneath the top of his eyebrow. And you can see how it really pulls it all together, because you then got your highlights, your midtones and your darks. So again, if we do the same, if you just on this eye in a moment, but we're just going to put the creases in. So I was saying, like, you've got the bird shapes. like with wings that you would draw. And it just gives you that crease up the centre of his line, with the crease lines going across horizontally across his forehead. And now with the crease lines coming down, so you follow it over, but now I'm pressing on quite lightly. Filling the tone in across the top of his forehead. Now, the creases carry on. He's got these little wispy hairs, so I'm just drawing them up using the very point of the pencil, very carefully. You know, don't need too many, he hasn't got a lot. But again, just gently, you can indicate them. Again, you can barely really see them on there, but they are there because they're very fine and light, and that's quite a delicate little touch that you can put in. So now we're coming down the side of his head where his creases are, and you've got a bit of a darker tone where the bright light is causing a little bit more accentuated shadows. Now if we darken his right eye, so we can darken the line down underneath his eyelid, his eyebrow and his eyelid, right into the corner where the fold creases in. If you can hear that squawking, I think I've got birds nesting in the roof. Quite apt really for Dobby. He makes some quite interesting squawking noises. But yes, it's that time in spring when birds are nesting, and I think I've got some nesting in the chimney. So now we've got 3 lines curving up there, and we've got that darker line coming down, and then we've got quite a lot of dark crease lines coming under. So we'll do the very bottom, curve that up to the edge, and then we can darken down from his tear duct all the way round underneath his right eye. So now I'm using the side of the pencil again and filling it in to darken all of that area. Now we've got a shape coming down right to his nose, so I'm filling all of that in, and then down over his cheek, right in the corner of his eye, that's a bit darker, and again the same on his eye, bottom of his eyelid, like the top part. Just darken that a little bit. Same with his eyeball, and then where it folds down the corner of his, like where his eyebrow would be, his eye socket, that's got a slightly darker tone as well, just as it curves around. Now here we've got these darker lines where his skin creases out of his eye and goes around the side of his head. Then we've got that T there, remember? And we can increase the lines around there. And darken his ear. So if we increase the darkness of his ear, he got crease lines going up there. Then we're increasing the tone inside his ear. We need to darken that crease line inside the top of his ear. And right down to the edge. So again, you're filling in a large space, so again using the side of your pencil is very, very beneficial. I'm just going to sharpen it again so I've got more pencil to work with. Now we've got the side of his cheek above that crease line and his nose. Now the tip of his nose is quite dark, and then that comes around, and then you've got a slight dark tone coming down the middle, but not all the way to the end. Now again, just like on this side here where you've got that darker tone, the same here is a little bit darker because the light's coming down, and where it folds under you'll have a bit more of a shadow line. Again, this will work all the way for all of the creases coming down his head. And so right in the corner of his eye, it's very dark. Now again, this section above, we can just darken that down a little bit, going towards the edge of his ear. Because you've got that funnel of light here that's showing up. But this is what is increasing the shape and the form just by adding those extra tones. So you see Dobby's really starting to look very three-dimensional. So now if we darken, again I'm still only using the 2B pencil, I'm only using the 4B for the pupils in his eyes, and I could have got away with using this, just press on really hard. So underneath his top lip, and we need to really increase the shadow underneath his nose going down to his top lip. The edge of his mouth coming up, and Dobby's got lots of kind of crease lines from his chin as well. Right underneath his bottom lip is a dark shadow going down to his chin. We can darken that down. Then underneath his teeth, up to the side there, you've got quite a good dark line. Just darkening his teeth down as well, right to the edge, going up to his lip. Now you've got the inside of his bottom lip. a little lighter bit there on the edge, but then his chin has got a good shadow going all the way up this side. So there you can see how just by cross-hatching over you can build up the tones and increase the definition little by little. So I need to increase the tone because I've got the strong line underneath. Doesn't matter about you going over the lines a little bit, it just adds to the characterization. Because Dobby's so wrinkly, it's great because you can just have fun making marks. You haven't got to think about, like when we've done Ron, Hermione and Harry, they've got such smooth skin as children that it can be quite a challenge doing very smooth skin. Now, this is the joy of something quick like this, is you can just enjoy making marks. Now I'm increasing the darks around his eye, the crease lines. And again, the bottom part of his nose, I'm making that darker. You see, that just really helps to lift it off. And I'm increasing the shadow a little bit. And the same with that side part of his nose, going up. And even in the centre of his forehead, you can increase the darkness a little bit. So there's the crease line of his chin. Now again, here we've got the edge of scraggly cloak and his neck. So again, follow the lines of his neck for the crease lines of his skin folding down. Now, underneath his neck, coming down here, is your darker shadow tone again, and that'll help accentuate his chin a little bit. And you got that great dark coming right the way up and under to the knot. And it's a bit darker there. Now you can be quite impressionistic, as you can see that really shows out now and helps to give form to his neck and definition. So here we've got a nice shadow coming down next to his cloak, and then from his shoulder which should go across to his collarbone. Again, we can just build and increase that tone. But there, right underneath his neck, there's some little highlights. Again, I'm just dabbing gently. You see how it just pulls up, and that's really helped to form and shape Dobby's chin. So there you can really see Dobby's head coming together. Now, the cloth is that grubby, dirty tone, so we don't want as many scratchy lines as we have actually on Dobby for all of his wrinkles. So I'm using the side of the pencil gently but pressing on quite firmly. So where this curves around, can increase that tone, and the same where that shadow line is. And we've got that coming round up to the top. Now you can really take your time on cloth and make it look amazing. It's up to you. Like I say, I'm going for an impressionistic look. So again, we've got the darker coming underneath where that curves around, and you got a bit darker where that fold is over that cloth, and we've got a couple of dark folds down here. And the same with that edge. And now we really need to darken Dobby's arm. It's really dark underneath. But I'm not going all the way down, remember, you can just let it trail off. And then the shape of his shoulder muscle coming down to his bicep. It's very dark underneath the top of the bow on his cloak. Now you've got the tone down the edge there, and the same because it's curved, you've got tone, slight tone there, and again underneath you've got a little dark coming down on the inside of that fold of fabric. Now I'm using the smudging tool again, just to push all of the pencil around on the tunic. Again, I'm using the side because it allows me to blend a large area, and you can get them larger than this. I just choose to use this one particular size because it works for me. So again, the same on Dobby's skin there above his tunic. Smudging all of that in on his tunic, and on his arm. Again, on his arm, I'm just going to dab gently. It gives it that kind of leathery skin feel, just pulling up some tone rather than a sharp hard line. You get that lovely soft mottled look, but right on the edge, because of that strong highlight, I've just pulled that up, and you see the sunshine just absolutely pouring in across Dobby on the bottom. That might disappear if a cloud comes over in a moment. Now again, on the top of the bow, got a lot of tone, and you can just smudge it in, but this little piece of fabric that comes underneath, just lightly using the edge and pulling up the highlights just to give it that curved three-dimensionality again. Stronger highlight on that top part. Again, his neck, you can do some crease lines coming around his neck. And we are getting there with our Dobby. Again, the top of his tunic here, you've got a very strong highlight. And right the way across this frayed edge at the top, but then right down this right edge, and then across the front we can just pull out some highlights as it curves around. You can see how the fabric's starting to really look three-dimensional as well. So just like his skin but more controlled, I'm dabbing on just above where the shadow line would be, and that's the softness that you can get on fabric as well, just by using your putty rubber. You can see there's lots of form now, and a bright sunlight. Now I'm going to use the smudging tool, and we're going to push the tone right. And you can hear I'm really pushing on hard on Dobby's face. So I'm really using the smudging tool, and there's a lot of pencil even underneath it. But I'm applying different pressures, but using it just like a pencil. To get the tones that I want quickly. So, and this is the thing, when you've got so much, and my hand isn't actually touching the paper, so I'll keep this paper out of the way. You see, it's quite clean, but I'm using the actual smudging stick as a drawing tool completely, and so I can indicate, so like even in this highlight there's very little marks which are Dobby's creases, but in the highlighted part. But it means I can work all across the drawing at once in a very dynamic way, rather than having to keep up picking up a pencil all the time. So now I'm really pushing the shadow in his left ear, and just pushing the pencil up to that highlight, and then right down to the tip. And you can see how it all starts to work together. So I'm pushing the pencil around on his nose, above his corner of his eye. Again, I'm going in that same direction as I put those original marks down, and now going over to the side. Using the tip of the smudging tool. And then above his eyebrow. And the thing with using this is you get lovely blurred smudged lines as well, which really helps and aids your drawing. Because there's just something about a slightly blurred line that's quite nice. So when you've got the smoothed, you know, like the cross hatching, and then the pushed out tone using the smudging tool, just all looks really, really lovely. So creating those creases down from off his eye, filling in tone on and above his left nostril, at the corner of his nose above his left nostril, and then you've got tone coming down next to it as well. But using the smudging tool means I can fill that in without having to go for a pencil. Darkness right at the edge of his nose. And because you've done all the groundwork with all the cross hatching and pulling layers off as well with the putty rubber, it all works together on Dobby's kind of leathery skin, partly translucent. Again, underneath his mouth, underneath his nose, above the top of his mouth, you've got tonal lines that are creating the creases, and you can just create them and push them even more using this very quickly. Whereas if you're putting marks down with a pencil, you would be constantly going backwards and forwards looking for different grades. And this is the thing, you can do that, it just takes a long time. Some of the portraits that I've done have taken a couple of days, if not longer, and that's absolutely fine. So there's a bit of a shadow underneath that crease line off his nose. Now it creases off his chin. So you got this T in his ear. Darkness in his eye. And again, you can just kind of unify the tone gently. Got that highlight, his eye ball. This is something that you can do using the smudging tool. And you get that kind of, you can see I've just pushed that tone around his ear, and it makes it look three-dimensional because you've got a little highlight underneath and then the tone above it. And that's all part and parcel of the way light falls on human, or in this case house elf skin. There you go, Dobby's looking rather fantastic. Again, I'm going for an impressionistic view to create an image as quickly as possible that you can then build upon by developing your techniques. And as I said, if you check out my portraits playlist on youtube.com/The Art of Billy, and there's a portraits playlist that I've done in pencil. There's one of Harry and Meghan from their royal wedding, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, from 2018, the royal wedding, and that was days, but it was a joy to do that. I just wanted some fun, just to do something a bit different. I thought that what a great subject that was. So now you can see I've really pushed that tone in, and his ear has lost some of its highlight, but again, because it's soft skin, and as I said, you can spend as much time as you want. Actually, in his ear you can see some of his veins. Now you could actually pull those up and draw those in and be very, very careful and very detailed. There's a little highlight above that T, and the crease going up there, and the crease going up there inside his ear. And you can pull off more than you need to. That looks quite good actually. And then just gently soften. And I am really gently just touching, and it just softens in that tone. So now edge of his ear. But again, just pulling up these highlights over his creases again. Again, if you go round his eyes now, above his eye and his lower eyelid, highlight next to his iris, just really makes Dobby's eyes stand out. Again, the same on this side. His top eyelid. And we've got quite a few even in this side. And down underneath. And the side of his nose. So he's just dabbing and pulling up little bits of the pencil. And then underneath this eye. Where this side of his mouth is. Top lip. And you can keep going and going until you're satisfied, and that's the thing, that's the beauty of drawing, is you can do as much or as little as you want. So the edge of his iris is a bit lighter. The edge of his nose. Oh, and then we've got that nice highlight coming up. Follow the curve of his head over. And then those crease lines over the top. And that's Dobby looking pretty groovy for the great little elf that he is. So now I'm just gonna pull out his teeth a little bit and the bottom lip. You see, I'm just pulled out that shape and that shadow and those highlights, and it just really allows Dobby to come alive. So I'm just fiddling, I really am fiddling. And there we go. We definitely needed a bit more dark tone there. And the same on that T part of his ear. That crease going round, and then do you know what? I'm actually quite happy with that. That's really good. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed drawing Dobby from Harry Potter the House Elf, and please do like and subscribe because there will be more Harry Potter characters. But that was good fun drawing one of the great characters out of the books and the films. Anyway, see you next time. Have fun with your art. Ta-da.